Well, I've taken the travel buddy out, and the reason I've taken that out is so that I can stick the drip tray that I've had manufactured onto the bottom of it. I wouldn't have been able to drill underneath. So there's the travel buddy with the drip tray. You see that I've marked it up. You might be able to see it anyhow. And I've put some pilot holes in. Hopefully I've drilled them all in the right spot. I'm going to yeah, I've put the putty in here as well. Apparently that's drillable. Just drill pilot holes in these as well. Stick a little bit of wire in those holes, stick them up and see if they align with the pilot holes in my drip tray. If they do, then I know I'm pretty alright with where my pilot holes are in the drip tray. Otherwise I'm in trouble. I'll need to sort something out. Hopefully that won't be the case. I'm going to be in town shortly, and I'm going to buy some little stainless self tappers to go in here as well. So I'm not going to drill these out properly until I know what size or what gauge screws I get. I've done the first part. I've drilled into that hole and that hole in the foot of the travel buddy, and they line up pretty well with the pilot holes that I've drilled. I don't know if you can see that. And I haven't drilled out that one yet, or that one. So I'm pretty happy where they are. I'm actually going to mark the putty, so I'll get a scribe and just mark it, and a scribe and mark that as well, and then drill them out after. So I'll drill these ones out, same as I've done the original two. And I won't finish this off until I get some screws. Back to the travel buddy now. You can see the drip tray I've mounted on the bottom. I've used spacing washer on both sides of the drip tray. Slastic on this side. It's been on there for a few days now. It's pretty firm. It's also heat shield as well, considering where I locate my travel buddy. The Townsville engineering clasp turned up today. That's the clasp and the latch. No instructions. I did see one YouTube video, not much helpful. I'm going to line up the latch, and you'll see a little pop mark there, and that's for this self-closing latch on these. Just lines up with that. So I'm just going to center it up, and I'm going to make sure the rivets, or the location of it, is close to the left hand side as possible. When the latch goes on, I don't expect for it to cover up that hole. I reckon the latch will end up around about there somewhere. When I'm drill this, these are actually insulated with foam inside here. You can just see a little bit of foam in there. Styrene it looks like. So I'm not too worried about the swarf getting down in there. But I still will, with my drill, I'll just stick some liquid detergent on it. It's like a greasy hand wash, so that the swarf will stick to the drill, or some of it will anyhow. For the door, I'm going to actually stick a blanket underneath the door and close the door so the blanket catches any swarf. Just the next step, I've put this pop rivet in just to locate that catch. It is squeezed up a little bit. I'm just going to center punch the center of that hole, and then I'll move it around to the side and I'll drill it, stick in the second pop rivet, and then squeeze it up tight, and then do the second rivet. Catch now installed. You see it's pretty well lined up with the center of that little pop mark that I pointed out before, and with the original handle hole. And this side, you can see that the left hand side of the catch is almost on the edge of the travel buddy there. Okay, what I've done is I run a set square. That's one of these things. Lined up the center of that hole and scribed a little line. You might be able to just make it out across here, so I know I'm centered up with that. I placed the latch in position, and I sort of know where I want my rear hole, and there's just a little mark there. It's not quite on the line, but that's where I'm going to punch on that line, drill the first hole. Now the distance between centers on these holes is 25 millimeters. So I'll measure 25 millimeters back this way, punch, and then drill a hole, and that should be right. As you do, you should measure twice and punch once. That was the first punch hole I put in. 25 millimeters between centers, And the second punch is there. I actually put it out 5 mils to start off with. I did 30 mils. So I deburred this side. It was the inside that which was more the problem. You can see it's quite clean up now. I go line up that latch on here first to make sure I've got that punch mark on the right spot. Rightio, job finished on that. Now that back hole is about 58 millimeters from that edge. And as I say, the centers between the holes and the latches are about 25, so I came back in 25. So it does pull up. Job done. Just got to put the little handle back on. Oh, that's the hole for the handle drilled out there, and I've just deburred it. Now if you don't have one of these deburring tools, I have used in the past just a drill, a larger size drill. You just need to be careful that if it takes up, you'll drill a bigger hole. Well, there you go, punters. All back in. Heat shield, come drip tray, new clasp. Should keep me pretty safe. I'm getting burnt and pick up some of the condensation that inevitably comes out of this oven. Before I go on to installing the air compressor, the wiring's done. I've just taken off the air horns, and I've got to replace that solenoid with this solenoid. That solenoid is going to be remote. I started prefabbing a bracket up. They'll go onto there and they'll get bolted onto the back of the toolbox. But I'm going to stick some waterproof connectors on the cables. So I've already stuck green grommets on. The wire goes inside the crimp. The instructions say just to crimp it up, but I'm going to solder it into place. That green grommet then goes to these outside lugs here, and those lugs crimp around the inside of the green grommet. Then you push that into one side or the other side, into the back of there, and it should self-lock once it's in there. And that assembles just like, well, you've probably seen them before, just like that. Rightio, I've finished wiring up the solenoid. That's okay. I pulled the horns off the base assembly and I've stuck a straight through push it. Stuck some thread tape on that, and even though these horns have got seals, rubber O-rings around, I've put some thread tape around that. I'll screw them back in, and then I've got to solder this last terminal onto the power supply for the horns, or for the solenoid, which is under the vehicle behind the toolbox. I thought I'd show you what I used to cut the airline tubes. This is from an O-ring splicing kit that I've had for, I don't know, best part of 30 or 40 years. Not quite a neat fit with these 1/4 inch air hoses. Same principle though, just stick it in between, hold it nice and square, run a Stanley knife blade down the centre and make a nice and even cut. And there it is, that'll do me. Rightio, I got the solenoid in. This is just the air box side, the mounting bolts. I've got some stainless ones there, 7/16 inch. Nylock nuts, some flat washers, but I've put some Loctite 243 on and some Celastic around it as well to try and keep the water out. So that's the inside of the airbox. Underneath now, let's see if we can see. New solenoid. So we've got the wiring coming up to the new plug that I stuck in just there. I think you can see it, it's a waterproof plug. Air line up to the horns and air line back into the air supply. Goes all the way up here. So that side of the air system should be right now. I hope. We'll check it out when I get the air compressor in.